welcome. It is episode 12 of the I Care About Books podcast. And we took a little bit of a break. I think it was because we were starting to realize that it's summertime. And for those of us who live in North America, this is a very exciting time that we wanted to enjoy. And so we've gotten a chance now to get together and discuss The Sex Lives of Cannibals, which is a sentence I never thought I would say in the history of ever. I'm Kara, I'm the social media marketing manager for Book Notification, and I am joined by three of my very favorite people in the world. Hi to Graham McGaw, the founder of Book Notification. And you know what happens, Graham, is like when I introduce people, I don't give them enough time to say hello for the camera to switch over to you. So, hi, Graham.
Hello. That's what you say. So not enough time to say hello. I said hello. I take people at the once. I don't want to prattle on. So, hello.
Hello. And to our entertainment editor here at booknotification.com, Vince, how are you?
Great. How are you? Yeah.
I am loving
the
tiki bar. I like the tiki bar.
Oh yeah, I'm in Ottawa.
That makes sense. That tracks for what we're chatting about today. And my cousin Angela joins us all the way from Germany this afternoon. Well, I guess, what time is it out there, Ange?
It is just after 9 o'clock.
And it looks absolutely beautiful. Angela is deployed right now and is in Germany, and we miss you. And how long are you gone?
6 months. Just started today, so.
6 months. Well, thank you so much, Angela, for being with us. Angela is a librarian in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and this was actually her selection this month, which is very cool. So I'm going to kick things off. The Sex Lives of Cannibals. How do we say, Jay Martin? Is it Troost? I think it's Troost is the correct way. I mean, I've been spending all afternoon remembering that it's Kiribati, not Kiribati. It's Kiribati. So I want to make sure that we're saying the names correctly.
Yes.
There isn't one. That's for those who are in the Marshall Islands area, that is how you say what we would normally look at in North America. We would say Kiribati, looks like Kiribati, but it's not, it's Kiribati. So I'm going to throw this over to Angela. Thank you so much for choosing this book, and tell us why you did.
Well, I mean, evidently by the title. So that was why I picked the book up from a used bookstore, and consequently why I picked it for this the book club. But I do also enjoy that genre of literature. So, I mean, it's not real literature, but it's a travelogue. I find that those are generally pretty interesting. People like to tell their own little story of not only their life, but the place that they've traveled to. And being someone who enjoys travel myself, I like to kind of read other people's stories about where they've been and decide whether or not I might want to go there. In this case, probably not.
Yeah, he doesn't exactly give it a formidable review, I would say, in this book. But we're going to go around the circle and we're going to get first thoughts on the book and see what everybody thought. You know what, Angela, let's just start with you. We'll throw it right to Angela and we'll work our way through. Angela, what did you think of the book?
I mean, it didn't live up to the title, so that's the first thing. But it was fun to read. I mean, the guy initially was a little bit like, why don't you just get a job? But and even when he's on the island and his wife is working and he's supposed to be writing a book, why can't you just at least write the book? Do something. But he did make a full-time job of just trying to stay alive. So I guess we can't really fault him too much for that. But it does, I mean, the closest place I've ever been to that reminded me of this is when I went to Madagascar, and it does kind of remind me of certain things where it's very difficult to get any good food, and there's not a lot of money to go around, and so people's lives are just a struggle. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. Maybe not the best book ever, but still a good read.
All right, over to you, Vince. Tell me, what did you think of The Sex Lives of Cannibals? Which, again, a sentence that's very strange to say out loud.
Yeah, this would be a hard one to recommend to people just because you have to say the title out loud. It was overall enjoyable. I think Graham will say this in a second, but the early part had me struggling a little bit. but the when he was on the island and the experiences, the differences, I found it interesting and learned a little bit.
All right. Gee, over to you. What did you think? Again, I get to say this again. Of the Sex Lives of Cannibals.
I get to say it. So I read The Sex Lives of Cannibals, and in one of my book newsletters recently, I did a reader mailbag asking people, if you're someone who DNFs a book, how do you decide when to DNF it? You know, like if you watch, a lot of people have the rule watching a TV show, they'll watch 3 episodes, 4 episodes. If they're not into it, they give up, move on. And the general consensus from people who DNF a book is 50 pages. That's the exact amount they read, 50 pages. If they're not into it, if they're not enjoying it, they'll quit it. If everyone had that rule, no one would read this book and no one would finish it, because the first 50 pages are full of the most pedantic, pseudo-intellectual bullshit I have ever read. Horseshit, tripe, smarmy, bullshit. First 50 pages. Gets a bit better after that, but yeah.
Graham, how do you really feel?
Yeah. It got better than the first 50 pages, but then not by much. And then it fell off a cliff. And yeah, I would not be reading it by this author ever again.
You know, I'm going to have to like backtrack now, and we haven't done our podcast in so long. I forgot to give our heads up that you might hear cursing on this podcast. And also while we're at it, we're going to spoil the book for you because we are discussing it at length. So please be warned, if you are interested in reading this book, read it first before you watch this podcast and then come back and join us. And Graham, thank you for reminding me that, yeah, sometimes if the moment serves, you might hear a curse word or two. So I will take my opinion cue from Graham. I didn't finish the book. And I thought to myself, you're the host of this podcast. It is your job to power through no matter how crap you find this book. And I couldn't do it. And that, you know what? I powered through the Poisonwood Bible.
That was a good book.
I powered through Beartooth. But this one stopped me in my tracks. So in full transparency, I read as much as I could. And then when I couldn't do it anymore, I read the ending so I could at least have some sort of an idea about the book and its summation. And then I went through and skimmed several chapters in the middle, and it never got any better and it never captured my interest. So that being said, I was really disappointed that I didn't like the book, not because I'm just simply disappointed that I didn't finish a book, because I love books, but that I'm someone like Angela and like Graham and Vince, that we love to travel. And so as somebody who has traveled and has been to New Zealand, which for me was, you know, as far away in the world as you could possibly go, I thought to myself, this is the book. This is the book that's going to get me. This is the book that's going to show me my love of travel, and it's going to express everything I have to feel about it. And I went, are you kidding? Like, he's so glib in the beginning, and smarmy is an excellent word, Graham. And you know what? Lucky for you, you don't have to find a job. Lucky for you, you get to just travel the world thinking to yourself, I am above, just getting a meager job with the peasants, and then just falling into work as it potentially comes up. And what pissed me off was that I wasn't angry at a fictional character, which, you know, sometimes makes you love the book because the author has so well described a character in such great detail that you're like, it made me feel something. This is a really great book, but this is a nonfiction book, which means he is describing himself. And if that's him, then my God. Okay, Vince, you've been giving me all sorts of eyes, so I'm going to throw it over to you.
Oh no, you both said he's smarmy. I think he's just Dutch. I think that's it. I think he's just European.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I could see that. I know some Europeans that, yes, I would describe them that way as well. I'm sure Angela's met quite a few, well, German maybe not, but you probably met some on your travels where you're like, yeah, they're not smarmy, they're just European.
Right.
Like everyone who works at this hotel.
Yeah, I would say that.
But
So,
with
yeah.
oh sorry.
No,
With
no, I want you to carry on, Vince. Tell me your thoughts about the book.
with him with his writing style, I think is like very Gen X, very a lot of heavy sarcasm, doesn't take anything really seriously, which probably worked really well in 2004, but in 2026 I think it's like kind of more of a turnoff for a lot of people, like you two. But yeah, I think it's like part of it, a lot of things he says too is just like, yeah, that would play in 2004. It doesn't play as well now, he even things he says about China and whatever. But yeah,
I think you're
it is like
absolutely
a
right.
dated.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I do think it is outdated, but his attitude sucks. Like, it just sucks. And I don't know why I was so angry with him, but he, Angela, you sort of touched on it a little bit about how he's on this island and he can't finish his book. And I mean, one party's talking about how they played all those games, as many of us did. If you were on a deserted island, what 10 things would you need? What CDs would you take? Who would you want to take with you? And yet now he's on the deserted island, quote unquote. Kiribati is not deserted, but doesn't finish the book. And I'm like, I want to like you, but I don't like you. And I can't listen to you tell me your story because I don't want to hear it. Angela, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, I found it funny when he would be going out and like all the steps he had to go through just to fill up the water tank. Like, that was amusing because that's kind of what I go through all the time with military bureaucracy. And so I'm like, this is what's happening. I understand your pain. But then the things that he does to himself, like the fact that he can't instigate anything on his own either, it's like, that's totally you. Like, the reason you can't write a sentence, you can't blame that on anyone else. Like, that's you. And so every time he tried to make excuses about that, that didn't track for me. I was like, just, have a purpose in life other than going to get the one fish every day on your bicycle.
I mean, do we need a greater purpose in life than one fish on a bicycle?
Yes.
Graham, I'm going to throw it over to you. Can you give us our synopsis of the book? I mean, we've got our opinions about the book. We've kind of delved in a little bit about what this book is about in general. But why don't you give us a synopsis?
That was back at me, right? Or that was him.
Yeah. She knows I'll butcher it, so it makes for good content. I'll try my best. Dude and his wife, well, his girlfriend at the time, go to an island so she can do a job that I don't really know what it was, because all he talked about the entire book was things he was doing involving, like you said, going on a bike every day to get a fish and dogs and seeing dogs attacking them or chasing them, and it was all about him. And I really don't know what it did. But apparently, even though he was rich enough to be able to do whatever and get stuff shipped to him, and then I don't know. It was just convoluted bullshit. Look, the book started, like I said, after all that nonsense at the start, it was about him adapting to island life and stuff like that, and that was really interesting. I was into that, and it was like it had a progression as he's learning about island, the customs, if you want to call it that, things like that. And then out of nowhere, there's this chapter that's like felt like 100 pages long, been on about the history of the island and people discovering it or not discovering it. And I'm just like, it just took you out of the book. And then everything after that was just random stories kind of thrown together. Random characters get brought in out of nowhere. They're not mentioned again. Like, there was no flow to it. That's a synopsis. And you know what really ticked me off, right? Is like, we did say it could be heavy sarcasm. Vin, you'll get this one especially, is near the end of the book. I don't think it's heavy sarcasm based on his writing style. He talks about the guy Mike, who's able to get imported the most random things, and he gets imported the computer game Doom. But then this pretentious twit writes he got Doom, or was it Gloom or Boom? It's like, dude, Doom. You're not too good to not know what Doom is, you know what I mean? So it was just, that whole thing was a real turn off. And yeah, that's my short synopsis of the book. Slap that on, Goodreads. Here's the description of the book.
So I have been very transparent and honest that I did not get through the sandwich portion of the book. I read the beginning and I read the end. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Vince. Is the ending real, or like did they that really happen? Did they live there for 2 years and then return to America as though they were stowaways from the movie Castaway, and looking around the Mall of America as though they were so, wow, what is this? I'm like, are you kidding me? You did not Swiss Family Robinson for 2 years and suddenly be so devoid of what the real world genuinely looks like. Now, I get that in 1996, you don't have the internet and you're not keeping up on world and current affairs, but certainly 2 years isn't long enough to forget that there's traffic in Los Angeles. So do you think that he was being genuine and honest with how they were when they returned home to the US? Or do you think this is all part and parcel of this character that he's trying to get us to believe?
I mean, it's exaggerated, but I mean, in my own experience, I lived in Hawaii for maybe 6 months of my life, like not even that long. But like when I came back, it was like a culture shock. Like, I mean, yeah, I lived in the city and yeah, we had cars but it was still just like a very different day-to-day existence that it took me just a second of being like, oh yeah, this is what it's like in, middle of America. It's a little different than island life. Island life's a different thing. And then for his island life, I do imagine it was probably quite a shock, especially when he wasn't good at anything, at being a functioning member of society, like to have to be one and he's not good at it. That would be a shock.
It brings me back to my point about this smarmy, the fact that he's so isolated and he's such shock coming back to the US that he falls in line with a job at the World Bank. Like, one of these things is not like the other. I mean, the juxtaposition of being like, I could only go 35 on the freeway because everybody was moving so fast, but I have a job at the World Bank. That to me that doesn't make sense to me.
It's great to be a white male,
What does happen?
It's great to be a white male. That's all I gotta say.
You know what? I'm gonna get that on a t-shirt. I'm gonna wear it in your honor. Angela, over to you. What did you think of the progression of the book and his storytelling and where we ended up at the end? And as Graham already gave the synopsis, I'll let you reveal the ending for us because I alluded to it, but let's talk about it.
Yeah, so when they moved back to the States, they decided that that's not for them and they really prefer island life. And I know he had written a sequel when they went to Fiji, but now currently he lives in California. So to go back to, what you were saying about, was he being honest about how he really felt about living in the States? I would hazard a guess that the answer is no. As much as he claims that he likes the simple life, he didn't choose to keep that. So I feel like it was the same as the title. He's just trying to get likes and trying to get clicks, right? So he probably portrays himself a little bit differently than he is in real life. And I feel like if any of us met him, we wouldn't recognize him as a person based on his stories.
So, I mean, I did read some reviews of the book, and a lot of people were pissed off by the title. They were angry that, he would use this as the title for this book because they felt it was misleading or false advertising even. Graham, what did you think? Did you think that stamping this title on this book was a good idea, fair, just, or kind of rad?
I mean, I guess it makes it stand out. It's unique. I didn't, usually after the book, when we read it in the podcast, I'll read up about the author more and the book and stuff. This one I couldn't bring myself to, so I don't know if he explained why he came up with that title or not. I don't mind the title, Sex Lives of Cannibals. It stands out. It's unique. I have no problem with the title. It doesn't really sum up the book at all, so I could definitely see how people would be feel disappointed or misled, but for me, it did stand out. It would have been nice if in the book, unless I missed it, he did tie in why he came up with that title, but I don't think he did, which he
I
probably.
think it had to do with dogs.
I was wondering that too, because it did kind of start talking, but that was the only part where the whole cannibal part came on, was where he talked about the dogs eating each other and so on, basically, which was another fun part, and dealt with humor. That was fun.
And
But
I don't know if the definition of cannibal is really a human eating a human or just something eating its own species. Because if that's the case, then you could argue that, yes, there was a lot of dogs having sex and dogs eating each other. So there you go.
I
that
did
that
get
would
to
have
the
been.
part where the dogs chased the pigs off the runway. So see, I did read it as much as I could.
But that would be a good title, actually, is Dogs Eat Dogs and Also Have Sex with Dogs. That would have been a better title, I think. It was
That's really long,
summarized.
Graham.
It is, but
A
it's
different
still-
a different clientele would have bought the book, I think.
Yes, I think so. Yes.
I was totally expecting you to say you hated the title because I said that's why I picked it and you hated the book. So
Yeah, the title I love, the book not so much.
So part of what I wanted to talk to you guys about with this book in particular, what I will say is I did appreciate his writing style. Now, what he was writing about turned me off, but that doesn't mean that I think that he's a terrible writer. That's ridiculous. I don't have to appreciate the content to appreciate the writer themselves. But I did want to ask about what you guys thought of the names of the individual chapters. And I'm going to just give one here so that those who are watching or listening to the podcast right now get sort of an idea as to the writer we're dealing with. Chapter 1, in which the author expresses some dissatisfaction with the state of his life, ponders briefly prior adventures and misfortunes, and with the aid of his beguiling girlfriend, decides to quit the life that is known to him and make forth with all due haste for parts unknown. That is one way to name a chapter, and all of them are like that. Vince, over to you. What did you think?
Honestly, that little bit you read right there, when I was like, that was where I was first like, I might be in trouble. I might not love this book. And then it's just like and then at a certain point I switched to audiobook, which was a little bit of a better experience. And when I'd be a new chapter and it was like, you can see the little time and he's reading the title for like 30 seconds or more. It's like, all right, that's enough. That's like, let's get back to the story, please.
Did you find the story fascinating in terms of the fact that it's nonfiction?
I think he left a lot on the table. Like there's like geopolitical stuff that he like touched on very briefly and then said, I'm not smart and I'm not going to talk about it. But that, that would be a little more interesting. Like, why is this island so poor? Why do they have nothing? Like the bigger countries just take from it and give them nothing in return. Like there's something there. Didn't want to do it. And then you just wanted to talk about like dogs and fecal matter and things like that a lot. So yes and no, I guess.
Angela,
So your answer question.
Angela, over to you. Let's talk about the characters in the book and those that he described. And what did you think of his writing style when you were really learning about his life and the way he interpreted everything around him?
I mean, the chapter titles, they would probably be funny to him the first time he had written them. But if he had gone back and reread them, he would have been like, what was I thinking? Because it's one of those jokes that doesn't like stand the test of time. You're like, okay, that was a little bit funny. You didn't really get to know his wife that much at all. I think she did work for an NGO. She was supposed to be doing like providing advice on maternal health because they were pretty low high infant mortality rate. So I think that was what she was meant to be doing. But she wasn't a character. I mean, he was the only character. There were people that he interacted with, but they weren't memorable. I couldn't tell you a single person that he had a conversation with throughout the book. And he did go back and talk about history. And I mean, there was a famous battle there that, there were thousands of casualties at the beginning, well, 1943, so it's not the beginning of World War II, but like at the beginning of the South Pacific part of the World War II conflict. So he did try and get a little deeper into things, but then you think he's just trying to be all things to all people, right? Because he's talking about dogs having sex to appeal to a certain audience. Then he's like, well, maybe someone intellectual is going to read this, so I'll throw in some historical content and see if I can just attract everyone. And usually when that happens, they alienate everyone.
So, and I think for myself, when I say that I didn't finish a book because I couldn't stand the narrator, but I can tell you that I remember Sylvia, his girlfriend, Kate, who she replaced on the island, half-dead Fred, who he talked about at the end of the book, who lived on the island for 19 years before they tried to extradite him back to the US, Mike, who he knew on the island, who had a plethora of interesting things, including a space for people to stay if they were trying to not be deported. The fact that those people still resonate with me in a book that I did not finish, in my world, speaks to somebody whose writing I enjoyed, because obviously his storytelling resonated enough with me that I can remember those individual characters despite not even finishing the entire book. So I think for me, I'd be interested in maybe reading something else of his and giving him a second chance, because I at least enjoyed his storytelling enough. Graham, I'm going to throw it over to you. What did you think of the storytelling? What did you think of the titles of each of the chapters?
It was, I mean, it's definitely probably geared towards a specific audience. I can see some people eating up that type of prose, that type of writing style and so on. But for me, it was just, too many words when one is enough. I like the concept of those chapter headings, but it was just not, I was skipping them after the first 3 or 4. I'm like, okay, this is junk, So what I said, so much of it just comes off as pseudo-intellectual, pedantic, like just trying to act smart with big words when it wasn't necessary, And like I said, there is definitely, I'm sure there's a big audience who love that type of writing. Like his descriptive writing was there, and he can tell a story. He does have a good writing ability, but I just hated the style. It really felt like he was just trying to insert too many big words and too much descriptive text when it wasn't necessary.
And he does he breaks the fourth wall. And although he's talking to us, there are some ways that he breaks the fourth wall, like when he talks about Sylvia looking over his shoulder as he's writing that exact part of the story in real time, is sort of an author's way of breaking the fourth wall, because he's not just telling us a story, he's reading it to us in real time, which I thought was kind of interesting. But those are the ways that I found that he wrote throughout the book. It was like as if he was writing in his diary until he realized someone was reading it. And then all of a sudden he was speaking to the reader and not just, a documentation of where he'd been or where he traveled. Would you agree with that, Vince?
Yeah, I would say so. And I think when he's maybe just treating it like a diary, it's better. When he's trying to be funny, it's not funny. It's very try hard, very like what Graham said earlier, doom, or is it bloom? It's just like that can be left on the cutting room floor. Just you don't have to put a joke in there. Like we're okay, we're adults, we can read about it. But yeah, I think Angela hit the nail on the head when she said that he's just trying to be everything to everybody. He's trying to appeal to intellectuals. He's trying to appeal to just people who want to airplane read or something like that. It's just trying to be everything to everyone. You please no one. And I guess we could say that we're no one in this chat right now.
We can say we are displeased, not we are no one.
Yeah.
Well, I think I've got sort of a good idea as to how each of you felt about this book, but it is the time in the podcast where we are going to rate this out of 10 bells. Angela, you pick the book. We'll start with you. What would you rate The Sex Lives of Cannibals out of 10 bells?
Well, I'm quite concerned now that I'm going to be kicked out of this podcast because it's the second book I picked that nobody liked, although I stand by the Poisonwood Bible. But yeah, I mean, there were some interesting anecdotes that amused me. So I'm going to give it 3 for those. I will give it 3.
Okay, I think that might be. Is that the lowest score you've ever given? I think it might be.
There was that time travel one that I disliked. I don't remember what I rated it.
She gave 5 for that one. When You Reach Me by Rebecca Stead. She gave 5.
And I gave that
that
book
one.
like a 12 because I loved it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, you gave it a 10 out of 10. Yes, I gave it a 4 for the record.
Vince, over to you and 10 bells.
I just want to say real quick, Angela, like there's something about like this book and Poisonwood Bible where it's like, do you just like the idea of people just like struggling to get water and go to the bathroom? Like, is that what you're into reading, of like people that just like are trying to survive in hard to survive places? Is that your genre?
The difference is the Poisonwood Bible I read first and I enjoyed. This one I took a leap and I picked it before having read it. So I will never do that again, and I apologize to everyone.
No, I was gonna go 5 on this all the time, and then everyone here is like even feeling like you're talking to me even lower, but I'll stick with 5. I guess I learned about a part of the world that I never would have known about if it wasn't for this book, so I'll give it some credit for that. I do just want to say one thing about dogs before we're done. There's a lot of dog stuff in this, and it reminded me of like when I lived in Alabama, and people down there, like they have a much different relationship with dogs than I ever did. Like a dog was, you throw a stick or a frisbee, you know, and down there it's much different. And just in this book, it's much different. So that like brought back some memories of people mistreating dogs that I didn't love. So anyway, dog warning,
nice
they had that website, like, did the dog die? Like, if you're one of those people who reads that, like, just don't even look at the book cover. Like, just throw this thing away. But for everyone else, I'll say like a light 5.
That took a serious turn. Was anybody else like wondering where Vince was going with the story until we realized it actually involves some childhood trauma or adulthood trauma? I'm very sorry that this book brought out some seriously grave memories for you, but I think also
grave being the key word.
I think it's important though too, and we've done this many times with various books that we have talked about here on the podcast. One notably was the Biddlemores, which was also recommended by Angela, and we did have to put out some PSAs about some of the content that you might read about in that book. So Vince, I think it's a good idea, mentioning that when readers are about to get into a book, because this didn't have anything at the beginning to say you might read about.
Right.
Okay, so a light 5 for Vince. Graham, go.
I'm just glad that Vince's story about Alabama and dogs went the route of death and not the other side of things, because I thought that was going to, from what I know of Alabama, I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna have to like cancel this podcast if he's going to tell one of those stories. But I enjoyed probably about, let's say, 20% of this book. Once he got on the island and the whole progression up until he just randomly talked about the history of discovery of the island, I enjoyed that entire part. It followed a formula. It was great, and then the rest of the book was just, it really just felt like thrown together nonsense. So I will go 3 out of 10. I think that's fair enough. And I do understand if it is one of those books that people would really enjoy, because it does have that prose that some people would eat up, I think. But 3 out of 10 for me.
I think that's your lowest as well, isn't it, Graham?
It is, yes. 4 out of 10 before for Rebecca Stead, When You Reach Me. It
was such a great book. Vince, did you read it? I know you missed that podcast. No. I think you just need to read that for me and just give me like your honest opinion, because it was so good. It was just such a great book. All right, now for myself, I don't think it's fair to give a rating for this book. So can I give a non-rating? Can I give a non-bell?
You can give it DNF, but for the average rating, we will probably count it as 0. So it
Really?
will be, yeah. So it will be the lowest rated book in the history of the book club, unfortunately.
Uh-oh, I'm
Yeah.
fired. Oh, wait, you don't pay me. You can't fire me.
More. We both really enjoyed that book. So no, you're not fired. And to be fair, I think we razz you a little bit about the Poisonwood Bible because I think the guys and I agree that it wasn't so much the book as the fact it was so long.
I know, and being long is the most ridiculous criticism of a book if you're a reader, because if you're always reading, doesn't matter if that book ended and a new book began, or if you really enjoy the book, I want it to continue, right? So I like long books. Anyway,
You know what? I've been reading Middlemarch for 2 years, so I'm
never going to finish that, Carrie.
I'm gonna
Just
finish the
admit
book.
it.
There.
But I do want to say my criticism of Poisonwood Bible was not it was too long. I love long books. Like I just finished with The Traveller by Joseph Eckert, which is amazing and was long. I've read so many Stephen King books. Poisonwood Bible, I said that was more just it wasn't for me. That was one of those books I can look at and say, I can see how people would classify this as a great book. It's just not my cup of tea. I really did not enjoy it with the writing style and so on. But it is one I can look at and go, yeah, I can see why people would love this one, give it 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. As it is for Sex, Lives of Cannibals, I cannot say the same thing. I can look at it and go, okay, you're pretentious too. That's it. And that's why you like this book. You learn a whole bunch of new words you can throw out in your day-to-day life. That's it. So, but yes, Poisonwood Bible was a great pick overall, just wasn't generally my cup of tea.
I think, you know what, Graham, speaking of people reading books to look clever, I feel an author like that is Douglas Copeland. His books are so fringe and so left of center that, when I would tell people, it's kind of like Rachel and Friends when she would tell people that her favorite movie is The Scarlet Letter, but when in fact it's Weekend at Bernie's. So I would kind of go around and tell people that Girlfriend in the Coma by Douglas Copeland is my favorite book. To seem
like
sort
that.
of, you know what I mean? And I think
so
that this book sort of falls in line with that. It would be one of those when you're going around and doing an icebreaker game with people being asked, what's your favorite book? The Sex Lives of Cannibals. And people go, oh, that sounds neat. So maybe you're right. Maybe it is a little fringe for people who want to sit on the outside of the bubble a little bit. Maybe. I am very curious to read maybe some more of J. Martin Trust's books just to see if I could get into it. But I can't stress this enough. Reading the first part of it and then jumping to the end just to see if it'll be worth it. And don't think that I jumped to the last page. Like I jumped 3/4 of the way through just to see if it was going to get any better, and to find that I was still angry with the story was really why I threw in the towel. So I thought to myself, if I could move ahead a little bit and just see if this is going somewhere that's going to make me feel better about reading this book, and it just did not. So unfortunately,
the middle was the best part, so that's the part you skipped.
All right, that all being said, okay, I'm sorry, Angela, that the group this time around is given a kind of a no to the Sex Lives of Cannibals, but that does mean we are going to go on to our next pick for episode 13, and that is to Graham this time.
I was looking at a list and we really haven't had a good sci-fi book, so I thought we'd go with a sci-fi thriller. One of my favorite authors is Douglas E. Richards. I've wrote a few of his books, read a few of his books, Portos, the Split Second series. So I was browsing that, I was like, let's pick one that I have no idea how it is, so same thing, going in blind. It's called Mind's Eye. It's actually the first book in a series of 4 currently, the Nick Hall series. It's about a guy who he wakes up in a dumpster, bloodied, without memory, and he's hearing voices in his head, and he finds out he's been hunted by a team of assassins. But then he discovers that advanced electronics have been implanted in his brain, and now he has 2 crazy new abilities. He can surf the internet using thoughts alone, and he can read minds. And yeah, that's basically it. So Douglas E. Richards, Mind's Eye. It was written in 2014, but this guy's, as I've read a few of his books, great sci-fi author, so I think it'll be better than Sex Lives of Cannibals anyway, and hopefully there'll be no dog sex in this one.
If you can
And
search the
for-
internet with just his mind, there probably is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, you
course.
can't help it, right? You gotta, at some point, you're gonna think of that and it's gonna pop up. So maybe
I
I'll
think of things and they show up as ads in my algorithm. I just think about it, and the song shows up on Spotify. It's so weird. Of course, my first question is to Angela. Have you already read this book?
I have not.
Well, then.
I don't
so
read a
that's
ton of sci-fi, so that's not surprising.
okay. So that is our pick for next week. Douglas E. Richards. Do I have that right, Graham?
Yep.
Douglas E. Richards' Mind's Eye will be for our next podcast episode, which will come out hopefully another one this summer, depending on how much fun we all are having enjoying the sunshine. But you can certainly subscribe to Book Notification and get all the updates on all the brand new books that are coming out, our podcast episodes, blogs, and so on at booknotification.com. And before I sign off on the Sex Lives of Cannibals, we're going to go back through the circle again just to hear everybody's rating of this particular book. Angela, go ahead.
3.
Okay, over to Vince.
5.
Okay, and Graham, what did you rate the Sex Lives of Cannibals? Which, again, a great sentence to say.
I rated it 3 out of 10.
3 out of 10. And myself, it was a DNF. So I'm not going to give it a formal rating, but Graham says that's going to render a 0 on the page. You can check out all the books that we've read so far for the I Care About Books podcast just by heading online to booknotification.com. And if you've got any feedback for us, you can also email me at care@booknotification.com. I'd love to hear your recommendations for books. And that is it on episode 12. Thanks so much, everybody.
Yep. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
That was great.
And we'll see you next time.